Hello everyone, this is Jonathan Little for PokerNews.com, and today I'm going to be reviewing a hand from a $1,000 buy-in World Series of Poker event I played last year. If you all see me at the World Series of Poker this year, feel free to come up and say hi. I always love meeting my students. In this hand, we are playing 250,000 chips deep at 3,000, 6,000 with a 1,000 chip ante, and we get lucky. We get pocket aces under the gun with our 40 big blind stack. So we're going to raise. I think just a standard raise to 2-point-something big blinds is acceptable. I'm typically raising to about 2.3 or 2.4 big blinds in today's games, just because people are defending their big blind a little bit better than they were in the past. You can get away with min raising if your opponent's going to play very poorly from the blinds, but as they start playing better, you should be raising a little bit larger to induce them to fold more often. Under the gun, though, it doesn't matter so much because you are fading the whole table. Anyway, the small blind calls, a loose aggressive kid. You typically don't get called by the small blind, and when the small blind does call, they usually have something like a reasonable pair or strong suited connectors. A lot of players are even folding hands like King Jack in the spot, and they should be folding King Jack in the spot. Many people are folding Ace X suited. It's really hard to get paid with the Ace X suiteds out of position. So general calling range in this spot is going to be mostly pairs and good suited connectors, if I had to guess. But, you never know. This is a $1,000 World Series of Poker event, and players do all sorts of silly stuff in the World Series of Poker. Comes King 10-2, he checks. We're definitely going to continuation bet. I could probably get away with betting a little bit larger. The pot's 41,000. I think a bet of maybe 22,000 would be a little bit more ideal. This is a spot where my opponent could very easily connect with this board. Notice if he does have any big cards, any two big cards, like a big suited connector, he has something on this board. He either has a gut shot or a pair. And if he has a gut shot or a pair, he's going to call any reasonable bet. So I would have liked to see myself bet a little bit larger. You don't have to go much larger, but a little bit larger. And notice if my opponent has something like pocket sixes, he's going to fold no matter what I bet. So there's no real merit in betting small to keep those in because those should fold on this board anyway. He does call, so that makes me think he has the big cards. Turn is a 3, a complete brick. He checks. And I decide to go for value again. The pot's 75,000, and I bet 33,000. At this point, our opponent is likely drawing very thin. If he has a one-pair hand, he's probably drawing to 5 outs. He could have Queen Jack and be drawing to 8 outs. Well, I guess 6 because we have 2 aces in our hand. He could have a few random flush draw hands. Like, say he does have, I don't know, Ace Jack of diamonds, or maybe even a little splashier hand like Jack 9 of diamonds. He has a ton of outs, but that's pretty unlikely. So we're really just trying to get value from the random kings and tens at this point. And to my surprise, he check raises pretty big. He makes it 115,000. So I made it 33. He makes it 115. So a huge check raise. Effectively puts me all in. I'm going to have about 100,000 behind. So I started the street with 210, and he's made it 115. So at this point, we have to ask ourselves, what is this guy's range? So let's pull up a program called Equilab, and let's try to figure it out. We have Ace of Spades, Ace of Hearts. The board is King of Diamonds, 10 of Diamonds, 2 of Clubs, 3 of Clubs, 2 of Spades. Why is it not typing in a 2? There we go, 2 of Spades. So now let's give our opponent a range here. We think he could probably have pocket 10s, pocket 3s, whichever one was on the flop. He could have King 10, for certainly suited. Could he have King 10 offsuit? Probably not. So really, what else is there that he could possibly have? Maybe he would make this play with Queen Jack. He's much more likely to have Queen Jack offsuit than King 10 offsuit, I believe. He can maybe make this play with King Queen or King Jack, just overplaying those hands. Maybe, although I think that'd be quite a poor play. They could also have a few of the suited aces. Maybe let's give him Ace Queen, Ace Jack. Maybe he has the random offsuit suited aces. Maybe, maybe not. The board contains a 10, so he can't have King 10 or Queen Jack. He can't have Queen 10 or Jack 10 of diamonds. Let's give him Jack 9 of diamonds and Queen 9 of diamonds. Ace 9, and maybe let's give him the lower ones. So you click here on suit selection, then we click on diamonds. Okay. And I think this is roughly the range we are against. These hands are the suited draws. And then these hands are the hands he's going to be check raising for value. Notice I don't think he can have pocket twos because I think he's going to fold that on the flop. I also don't think he's going to have pocket kings because many players re-raise that before the flop. So we come over here, we click evaluate, and you see that our aces have him crushed. So is there any world where our aces don't have him crushed? Why don't we take out these draws? Maybe he 3-bets ace queen every time. And maybe he doesn't check raise king jack or king queen. So let's now just give him the queen jack straight draws, 2 pairs, reasonable 2 pair at least, and then the best draws that he could possibly have. Against that range, we still have 60% equity. So what this amounts to is if he's ever check raising this with any draws, notice if he has no draws in his range, we're losing because we lose everything. Maybe we take out queen jack offsuit. Let's see if that changes anything. Now we're at 40% equity. But even then, realize that there's already 100,000 in the pot, and we effectively have to put in 180,000 more to win the big pot. So even then, we're getting roughly the right price. Even if he's only check raising the best draws and the realistic nut hands. The issue with my opponent's situation here is that there's just so few nut hands he can actually have. And I'm not going to say you should ever... The only time you should really fold aces in this spot is if you think your opponent's incredibly tight. If you think your opponent's a loose aggressive kid, then you just pretty much have to call off. So with pocket aces, we know we have to call off. What about if we have ace king offsuit? Does that change anything? Just a little bit. Notice that pocket aces and ace king are only slightly different in equity. What about king queen offsuit? A little bit more. So as your hand starts going down the list, you lose just a few percent equity. But notice that ace king and king jack are only slightly worse. And again, this is about as bad as you could ever get it in. And that's just because this contains very few draws and very few marginal made hands. So in this spot, I think you could actually get it all in with any king, which feels kind of dirty. But the reason for that is because there are just so few good made hands. And also you have to realize if you have a king, it's even harder for your opponent to have king 10 because you have a king in your hand. So what this amounts to is I'm going to be putting my stack in. If your opponent has a draw, you want him to go ahead and put his stack in immediately because, well, we don't know he has a draw, right? So we don't know exactly which cards we have to fade because maybe he has queen jack and if a diamond comes, he goes all in, maybe you decide to fold. Or maybe he has diamonds and 9 comes and you decide to pay him off. If he has queen jack, I mean. So you don't really know which cards you have to fade. And also, we don't want him to be able to fold his king queens and king jacks if he happens to have those. So this is a pretty reasonable spot just to go all in. But in this scenario, you always want to ask yourself, what is the worst hand I should be getting it all in with? And I think in this spot is probably going to be a king. And I think pocket queens is probably going to be just a little bit too bad. And that's because if he happens to be check raising here with queen jack, just overplaying his hand. I'm sorry, with king queen or king jack, overplaying those, you don't want to get severely punished when he has pocket queens. I mean, I'll show you what happens if we have pocket queens and we put the king jack and king queen back in there. Let's give him all the queen jacks also. You see now pocket queens is in horrible shape, but king queen, for example, has a ton of equity, right? So even though it's just like 1 pip off, same thing with king jack, it's good enough. Even though it's just 1 pip off, because realistically, you have to ask, am I raising king 9 under the gun? The answer is no. So pocket queens is just one notch below king jack. The hand is significantly worse. So this is a spot where I think you want to be getting it in with a king or better. So that's going to be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do, let the people at Poker News know. You can let them know on Twitter or here in the comments. And I'll be back next week with another video. I wish you the best of luck at the World Series of Poker or wherever you are playing. And if you see me, feel free to say hi. This has been Jonathan Little for PokerNews.com. Thanks for watching.